Hi guys, welcome to Bible Breakdown. We're doing 2 Samuel chapter 14 and 15. So Joab sees David and it says he realizes the king's mind was on Absalom. So he gets this woman from Tekoa and she was a wise woman and he basically makes her act as if she was mourning something. So he tells her to look the part, put on mourning clothes, don't get yourself ready, and he gives her a script to follow. So paraphrasing, this is the script. She goes to David, she bows down to him, gives him his respect, and then she's like, I need your help. And David's like, what's going on? She tells him that she's a widow, she lost her husband, she has 2 sons. Now, these 2 sons were in this field and they start fighting each other. Nobody could stop them. We're going to say son A and son B, okay? So son A kills son B. And now the clan is going after son A and they want to kill son A because he killed son B. So she's like, we need to protect my lineage because after this son, I have nobody else to live the legacy of my husband. So David replies and says, go home, I will issue a command on your behalf. Then she replies, my lord the king, may any blame be on me and my father's family, and may the king and his throne be innocent. So David, he tries to reassure the woman and he's like, if there's anybody that says anything to you that you don't like, send them to me and I'll take care of it. And the woman, she reiterates like, I don't want my son to be eliminated. Please help us in the situation. And he's like, there won't be a hair touched on your son. So then after he says all this, she's like, may I say a word to the king? And he's like, sure, speak up. So after she said all this, she basically tried to convict David of his own issues about banishing his son and his son not coming back. She says to him, when the king spoke as he did about this matter, he has pronounced his own guilt. The king has not brought back his own banished one. Then she says, God would not take away a life. He would devise plans so that the one banished from him does not remain banished. So then she's like, I hope the king grants my request. Like, I hope you hear me. I hope the Lord's with you. She says, may the word of my Lord the king bring relief. For my Lord the king is able to discern the good and the bad like the angel of God. May the Lord your God be with you. So then David speaks and he's like, you better tell me the truth after I ask you this question. And she's like, what's going on? And he asked her, did Joab make you do this? And she basically was like, yeah. Then she tells him she was supposed to present the issue indirectly, but David has so much wisdom that he figured it out. So now David's speaking to Joab and he grants his request and he tells him to go bring back the young man Absalom. So Joab, he is so happy. He falls down on his face. He gives him his respect. He kisses the king. He's like, I found favor in you because you granted my request. Like, this is awesome. But there was a catch. So the catch was that Absalom could not see the king. He had to go straight home and he was not allowed to look the king in his face. Mind you, the king is his father. I hope we remember the king, David, is his dad. That's a crazy request because that's your son. Like, haven't seen him in a long time. You still don't want to see him. But either way, Joab goes to get Absalom. He goes straight to his house and he doesn't see the king. So verse 25 and 26 is talking about Absalom's appearance. They're like, he is the most handsome person that Israel has ever seen. He has no blemishes from head to toe. He cuts his hair once a year and he weighs it and it's 5 pounds. Like, this man is top notch, apparently. So Absalom, he had 3 sons and a daughter. He named his daughter Tamar after his sister, I'm guessing. And it says that he was in Jerusalem for 2 years and has not seen the king at all. 2 years he hasn't seen the king. That's crazy. So Absalom calls for Joab because he wants to be sent to the king. Joab does not answer. He calls for him again. Joab does not answer. So then he gets his servants and he's like, Joab has a field of barley. Go burn it down. So the servants burned down the field and now Joab's like, why did you do that? And Absalom's basically like, that's the only way I could get your attention because I called you twice, you didn't answer. So he's like, what is my purpose here? You guys called me here. I should have just stayed where I was because I can't see the king. So then he says to him, so now let me see the king. If I am guilty, let him kill me. So Joab tells David. David calls for Absalom. Absalom bows down to David, and then David kisses Absalom. And that's the end of chapter 14. Now, chapter 15 is a side eye. Basically, Absalom is a traitor. and we're going to see why. So the first line says, after this, Absalom got himself a chariot, horses, and 50 men to run before him. Then he would wake up early in the morning every day, and he would stand by the road to the city gates. So here I wrote down, like, his purpose for doing that was when people would go up there to look for judgment from the king, he would basically paint it as the representatives weren't good enough to, like, help them resolve their problem. Because it said people would go up there when they had grievances to bring before the king for settlement. He would ask them what city they're from, and they'd be like, I'm from one of the tribes of Israel. And he would respond, look, your claims are good and right, but the king does not have anyone to listen to you. Then he would say, if only someone who appointed me judge in the land, then anyone who had a grievance or dispute could come to me, and I would make sure he received justice. So he's trying to paint himself as like this great guy that could do anything, and he would be so nice to the people of Israel. He would kiss their hand. He would just be super respectful and just like in their space. So he ended up doing this every time somebody asked for a settlement, and this ended up making all the people of Israel love him. So Absalom asked his father if he could go to Hebron to fulfill the vow that he made to the Lord. So he made this vow to the Lord while he was gone, saying, if the Lord really brings me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron. So David tells him he can go in peace. Mind you, Absalom was plotting this big plan this whole time. So he sends this message throughout all the tribes of Israel, and he says to them, when you hear the sound of the ram's horn, you are to say, Absalom has become king in Hebron. Absalom had 200 people follow him, and they had no idea what they were getting into. It says, they have been invited and were going innocently, for they did not know the whole situation. So after that, Absalom was growing his group. Like, he was growing his supporters. He even took people that were on David's side and made them, like, be on his side. So it says David's advisor ended up being on Absalom's team. Then verse 13 says, then an informer came to David and reported, the hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom. So David hears this and he's like, we need to go. We need to run. We need to be out of here before Absalom basically uses his power and just like overtake all of us. So David's servants are ride or dies, as we know. And they're like, whatever you do, king, we are going to follow suit. So David took him and all his people, and he left 10 of his wives just to like watch over the palace. On top of that, 600 people from Gath also followed David. So there's this man from Gath named Ittai, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and David's trying to advise him to stay back and stay in Jerusalem and be with his son Absalom because he's new, he's in exile, he's a foreigner, and he didn't want to really put him in that kind of situation. He tells him, go back and take your brothers with you. May the Lord show you kindness and faithfulness. But Ittai was not trying to hear that. He was like, this is a ride or die situation. If you die, I die. He was just showing his faithfulness to David, and David ended up allowing him to go with them. So they all went to cross the Kidron Valley, and they ended up walking into the wilderness. The priests Zadok and the Levites, they had the Ark of the Lord with them, and it says that they put it down so that they can give sacrifices to it while the people were marching past them. Then David actually instructs them to bring the Ark of the Lord back to Jerusalem. And he's like, if I found favor in the Lord, he will bring me back to it. But if not, then it is what it is. So he tells Zadok to take the Ark of the Lord with his 2 sons, go back to Jerusalem, and he will wait in the wilderness for their signal. So David and his men, they're going up the mountain, and they're just like mourning this whole process. Then David gets word that the advisor that was on his side is now on Absalom's side. So he prays to the Lord, and he asks the Lord to make his wisdom foolishness. So David goes to this area where people used to praise the Lord, worship the Lord, and he sees an old friend. His name is Hushai, and this man just appears as if he's been mourning as well. So David kind of advises him to be their spy, their inside scoop. He's like, go back to Jerusalem and be the servant of Absalom. Tell him that you used to be my servant, but now you want to be his. And then he's like, get all the information that you can get from my old advisor and Absalom and report it to the priests that are there that's going to report back to us. So Hushai, he actually agrees to do this. And the last line says, so Hushai, David's personal advisor, entered Jerusalem just as Absalom was entering the city. I'm going fast because my time's about to run out, but that's all I have for y'all. I love y'all. God loves y'all more. Have a great night.